Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Wrestling with Tragedy. Today, we are going to be covering off uh, Gone Too Soon, a list of a number of professional wrestlers who passed away well before their time. But before we get into that, I'm just going to go around and introduce my co-host for this evening, and that is the Kingpin, Angel Medina, former ECW original King of the Streets. How
Can
are
you
we,
say,
Kingpin?
can you say it a little faster? I didn't get
Yeah,
that.
man, take a breath.
I'm just excited, man. I'm excited to talk to you guys. I'm sorry.
You're excited because you're on the other end of the world and you've been up all day. I don't know who decided to call this meeting so early,
Very
but
early.
Angel and I are still awake, still waking up.
7 a.m. my time.
Well, also introducing my other co-host, Kevin. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me tonight, gentlemen, to go over Wrestling with Tragedy Gone Too Soon. But before we get into that,
I
just want to
freaking
give
love this show.
Oh man, it is like people are loving it. We're getting such good
Oh,
response from people. So
it's blowing up like wildfire, brother. That's what's going on.
the love that everyone's showing us, we really appreciate that. But before we go any further, we just want to give a quick pause for the cause, a shout out for our sponsors, and our first sponsor for this evening. Kevin, if you could bring up that lovely banner, please, of A-Rock Designs. A-Rock Designs is run by Kevin's lovely wife, Ashley Rodriguez. She makes custom cups, hoodies, t-shirts, tumblers, keychains, you name it, she makes it. If you want anything printed on a cup, she can do it. They even say you can print something on a dog, can't you, Kevin? Isn't that what the slogan is? You can like print a dog.
She could probably monogram your dog. I don't recommend it, but as Ted DiBiase said,
Everybody got a price?
there we go. I look for Peter to finish it, and he's sleeping at the wheel. But in
I was-
the King of the
I was-
Streets to save the day.
I thought Angel was going to jump in there, so I apologize. But make sure to contact Ashley Rodriguez or Kevin Rodriguez to inquire about some custom cups and materials like the one my co-host Kevin is drinking out of this evening. But next, our other sponsor, the wonderful and amazing Mayan Belts. Mayan Belts are the best championship belt makers in the world. If you want a custom championship belt or your favorite replica championship belt, contact Eddie and Ira Williams on Facebook. Go to Mayan Belts and contact Eddie there. And you guys can, get a great price for a great championship belt. And as I said, these guys are the best in the business. Kevin's got some on order from him. Kevin actually owns a few belts from Mayan, and he's got more on order. They do an amazing payment plan. The Kingpin's got a belt coming from Mayan. I'm working on getting my first belt from Mayan, and I'm so excited. But guys, let's get into. Sorry.
I was going to say, are you saying that they're the best there is, the best there was, they're the best there ever will be type of company?
You know what? I'll go that far and say that. Yes, I will, Mr. Kingpin.
Absolutely.
When it all comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you know you're doing something right.
Oh, like you wouldn't believe. But guys, tonight, we're going to be discussing a very sensitive topic, and it's gone too soon. And in professional wrestling takes its toll on the mental health of human beings involved in professional wrestling, the physical health of the people involved in professional wrestling. Kingpin, you've seen it firsthand, over the years, and the list of people that have passed away well before they should have at very young ages, ranging anywhere from 20 years old to mid to late 40s is way too young. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I lost a lot of friends. I mean, I miss them dearly. I mean, it's a sad thing because, like you said, they died too young, and they had demons, and but I still love them. I mean, it's just hard to even talk about it because it's like if you have 10 people in the room and everybody's dropping like flies, and you feel like me and DeVito used to do this real quick. Every time we heard somebody die, I mean, I know it was a joke and we were just trying to lighten the blow, but we used to be like, "You next, bitch. You next." So, he used to always hit us with that. So we always think like, "Oh man, I hope I'm not next, man." But I mean, I don't have no vices, or DeVito doesn't, but it's just scary because if you look at the list of wrestlers who went too soon, they're all young, from the Guerreros to Benoit. I mean, even though he committed suicide, but you know what I mean? It's just the age is always in the 40s, or 50s or whatever, but still young.
Well, just to list a couple here, and Kurt Hennig, 44 years of age, drug intoxication. Balls Mahoney, 44 years of age, heart attack. Sean O'Hara, suicide. Brian Adams, accidental prescription overdose. Those are just a few names to name the few. And, are these wrestlers that are obviously going through suicide and also having obviously a lot of these guys have had years of drug abuse and which has contributed to the heart attacks. But some of them who haven't had so much or who haven't been known to have drug abuse and suffering from heart attacks, how do you actually equate that to being so common in professional wrestling? Is it because of what is it?
Oh, I mean, it's probably the pain. I mean, because you got to go. I mean, it's just when you wrestle in the ring and you get yourself hurt, you're afraid to lose your spot, and you don't have that little pep in your step, And again, I'm not. I don't know what they're going through their mind. Because there was times I was in the ring like, hey man, I need to step to the plate and keep pushing forward because you're afraid to lose your spot. You afraid to say you're hurt. Like I said, when I was set on fire, which was a straight shoot, Tommy even came up to me and said, "Angel, are you hurt?" "No, I'm good." "Angel, please be serious. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." Because I'm laying on the floor. Just you can smell skin burning, but it's just you didn't even want to admit that you were hurt. Devon, one of the closest friends, when Sid Vicious choke slammed me out the ring backwards and I hit my head on the table, I had a hematoma, and he was like, "You okay?" "Yeah." "Angel, please don't lie to me." I'm good, man," because you didn't want to show weakness. You didn't want to show that you were vulnerable. I mean, that's just from my point of view. I wanted to be keep going talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And you see that in many, many facets of life. But pro wrestling for sure. You get these number of non-life threatening injuries. But when you get 5 or 6 or 7 of them and they go untreated or you're afraid to ask for help because you're going to lose your spot. Now these non-life threatening injuries are adding up and adding up and adding up, and it really starts to take a toll on your body. Not just your body, but your mental health, your physical health, and everything in between. So when you add all these things together, plus life on the road and working all these dates and I mean, let's be honest, professional wrestling is one of the hardest sports in the world for the reason that, I understand everybody wants to use the F word, but like we all say, wrestling is many things, but fake it is not. Professional fighters, they fight at a max 3 to 4 times a year. Boxers, the same thing. Wrestlers are literally doing this night in, night out. They run every single week, and then you count the live shows, and it's just you're putting your body through a small car accident every single time you get in the ring, and that stuff really starts to add up. So when you take on the physical pain, the mental strain, being away from your family, life on the road, it really takes a toll on your body, like we see with the heart attacks and the strokes and brain aneurysms and all this other stuff. And then even if you do stay in good health, now you're getting into the taboo topic of suicide. I'm not an advocate for suicide. I'm not talking about suicide right now. We're just talking about people who have died too soon for whatever the case may be. As a pro wrestler, you have like everybody sees and Angel, I'm sure you know this better than either me or peers do, but everybody sees the money and they see the fame and the glory and all that's coming, but what they don't see is that comes with the depression, the anxiety, the long miles on the road, the injuries, and the time in the hospital going through surgeries. There's just so many things that contribute to it.
But what's funny is this, like from my perspective, from my point of view, when I was wrestling, two stories. When I was wrestling in Puerto Rico, Tess was there. I was wrestling for the company IWA with Victor Quinones. And there was a store in Puerto Rico that sold bodybuilding merchandise, supplements and stuff like that, and tights. But behind the scenes, they sold steroids. So we used to buy steroids over the counter on the down low. And down low, Pierce is hush.
Thanks, Angel.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, but the thing is that that day we were over there. It was me, Tess, I think it was Lobo, and across the street was the pharmacy. Now you could get prescription drugs over the counter. Man, they went over there. The guys told them, hey, you know, you can get somas over there for, you know, cheap. So we went over there. I went with him, and he got a freaking bottle of somas that looked like this tumbler right here. And he goes, once he gets it, he pays for it. He goes, oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm like, dude, you know, like my mental state was like, this guy was so excited because he got the pills that was in a jar this big, and he's hugging it like, ooh, the last action figure in the world that cost millions of dollars. And then, you know, years later, they find him dead on his recliner. The next door neighbor. This is the story I heard. I don't know. I mean, I didn't look it up. I'm just going off of what I heard. That your next door neighbor just kept looking out the window and just saw his feet, and they never moved for days. And all of a sudden, they found him in his recliner with a half-eaten pizza, overdosed on somas, on pills, or whatever. And I just was like, wow, you know. And the same with Bobby Duncan Jr. Man, they found him with morphine patches on his testicles. That's what I really. That's what it got back to me from the boys. That, you know, because your nutsack is so thin that those morphine patches would just absorb through your system real quick, and they just hit him like a freight train, and he died.
That can't be good for sperm count.
I don't know, you know, it doesn't matter if you're dead, but I got to look that up because I mean, it just says that he just died of a drug overdose here, but I just remember the boys calling me, yo, dude, they found him with morphine patches on his balls. I was like, what? You know, I had to play with my nuts like, is it really that thin? Does that really work?
Man, the things what people do to get high is surprising and shocking to say the least. You know,
I got so many stories, brother.
Dude, I've seen people just to get that buzz. You know, they inject in the webbings of their fingers and under their fingernails and
the feet.
The feet.
The reason why is
to hide the track marks.
Yeah, that's because if you were like, regardless, if you're an officer, if you're somebody trying to hide your vices, they don't, you know, they're gonna look at your arms and stuff like that. But sometimes they do it on their feet and in their groin area, so they will not have any signs of track marks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
but getting back on topic.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, getting back on topic, guys. There's just, and I think that, you know, the new health and wellness policy, well, I say new, but the current health and wellness policy, I do believe that this is why it's gotten so strict. When you think of the cases like Test and stuff like that, and it may not be as strict as we're led to believe, but it's definitely not the way it was back in the day.
Yeah, man, but I think that they choose who they want to test and I mean, I don't know. Again, I never been through it.
We've heard plenty of stories. I'm not trying to cut you off, but one of the most recent stories was with CM Punk. CM Punk gets called in to take a drug test, and, you know, he preaches this straight edge lifestyle, and he's not really making he's not saying he's not going to do it, but he's making little snide remarks about it. Yeah. And Hunter tells him that, and Triple H tells him, well, Dave Batista just took the same drug test you're about to take. And CM Punk just looks at Triple H and he goes, did you? And Triple H just kind of laughs it off and walks away.
Well, I heard the same thing with Scott Steiner when they said to him, hey, we want you to do a drug test. And he goes, okay, I'll do one if Triple H does one. And they never forced him to do it after that. So that was one of the stories I heard.
But that's the one thing, like WWE having a wellness policy, and one of the early topics when we were discussing organizing this episode was a young independent wrestler called Trent Acid, who died at 29 years of age of a drug overdose. Now, Trent debuted in the professional wrestling world at 14 years of age, you know, and wrestled a lot in the Philly, New Jersey area. He was destined, and he was like simply amazing in that ring, and he was destined to be in WWE, but his vices and his demons, so to speak, were the things that stopped him from achieving that goal and ultimately led to his death. And, you know, we look at that in professional wrestling, how many deaths have occurred because of overdose, whether it be accidental or purpose overdose, because these guys are trying to find an escape? Is it because these guys have gone through some very tragic histories in their own lives, and this is their way of dealing with it? Is this because of things that they've experienced in the professional wrestling world that's driven them to wanting to put this sort of junk in their body?
Well, I mean, it's part of the world, man. I mean, like I said, when I was around the boys, there was guys sitting next to me crushing Oxycontins. They were crushing Oxycontins, breaking the timer, because I was learning. I was still green, and I'm seeing them crush the Oxycontin, and I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm breaking the time release," and they're sniffing it, and I'm like, "Oh, okay," because I've never done prescription drugs. I mean, yeah, there was times I was given some Vicodins and some Somas and stuff, but I had a fear. I didn't want to get dependent on it. I didn't want to end up like the boys, because people were dying at the time when I was in the business, like starting out. So I was like, man, I'm not going to get hooked on anything. So yeah, I did my Somas and stuff like that, but it's just part of the world, man. Just like any sport, just like when you're around it and you think it's the norm, you become part of the norm, because it's like in high school. Hey man, smoke this weed. I don't want to. Hey, you're not part of the cool kids. You're not part of the. Me. I didn't give a fuck. I was like, nah, I ain't doing that shit. I don't give a fuck what you think.
Yeah.
But good.
I'll tell you a very similar. Less, not as a big deal, but along the similar lines. Before I joined the military, I never drank a drop of alcohol. I mean, I had my celebratory, New Year's Eve and stuff like that. And then when I joined the military, I mean, it was so common, and everybody did it. I went to my first bar when I was in the military, and my boss at the time actually bought me the first beer I ever drank. And the reason I say that is it's hand in hand with pro wrestling. You take a young, impressionable, green, new to the business, up and coming,
like Pierce.
Yeah, exactly. And he walks into the locker room and he goes, he's a former world champ. He's a Hall of Famer. He's doing this. He's doing that. And nobody's putting a gun to his head and saying do this, but it's like you said, they don't want to look like whatever the case may be. They want to fit in. They want to be one of the boys. They want to be recognized as one of them. So I think that has a lot to do with it, is impressionability, peer pressure, and Piers, you said, what really causes something like this. And I really believe that when it comes to the massive amounts of wrestlers that we see with painkiller addictions, Eddie Guerrero, he was sober when he died, but he had done it for so long. Eventually that's going to catch up with you.
Like Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say like Hulk. And whenever and it's like I said, and Angel, once again, this better than anybody. When you're wrestling this number of matches per year, and you're wrestling these dates per year, and you're hitting the road, and you're never really getting that rest you need, you're literally putting your body through a small car accident to wrestle a match. And then instead of laying down, getting stretched out the way you need to, whatever the case may be, because we're all young and dumb, and it's like, yeah, I'm a little sore, I'm a little stiff, but I'm going to go jump in this car and drive 6 hours in a seated position. Now sitting here as adults, we're like, that's probably not the best idea. Probably should have laid down, get stretched out, went and seen somebody about it, whatever the case may be. But now you're after a wrestling match, just from a medical point of view, everything in your body gets jumbled around. And instead of taking the time to let your body reset and be the way it needs to be, you go get in the car and you drive for 6, 7, 8 hours. So now your body's still effed up. It's not reset properly. You're feeling pain. You don't feel comfortable. And it's just one thing leads to another. And instead of, I don't want to call it common sense, but I mean, I guess it kind of is. Instead of the common sense answer is like, hey, let me go see a doc, let me get checked out, maybe even a chiropractor. But then you run the fear of, well, I don't want to lose my spot. I don't want to lose my push. I don't want to be taken off TV if they find something wrong with me. So instead of that, let me go get these couple of pills that's going to make me feel better and numb the pain, but really they're not curing anything. They're not fixing the problem. So once that painkiller wears off, now you just got to take more and more and more and more.
And it's funny. I mean, like I said, I wish you guys could see it through my eyes, like right in front of me, the things I've seen. And I'm not going to shout out no names because they're still alive. But I remember I was in the bar and they were like, hey, sit down. We're sitting down talking and I'm drinking a beer. I took 2 somas, had a beer. And then for like 45 minutes, this is starting from the beginning of the 45 minutes all the way to 45. But I mean, from the gate. The guy was like popping 2 somas, drinking a beer, talking. 10 minutes later, 2 more somas, drinking a beer. And then, I mean, for the 45 minutes, he took like over like, I'd say like 15 to 16, 17 type, somas. Just kept popping them. And by the end of that night, by the end of that 45 minutes, they were like, well, I can't even describe the word incapacitated. They were just like, couldn't speak, they were drooling and we had to carry them and take them to the room and make sure they were laying on their stomach with their head to the side, had the pillow propped up. We even had to do those steps to just make sure that they didn't choke in their sleep. I mean, this was the everyday norm. And again, it was just heartbreaking, but it was part of the business. So you thought it was normal. But again, I didn't want to fall into that world.
Mm.
It's just weird.
And that's the thing. It's like you look at you look at professional wrestlers now, and and I've said this before many times, and I know Kevin said it as well. Professional wrestlers these days, the young up and comers, and the guys that are wrestling in WWE week in and week out, and AEW week in and week out, and all the major promotions, they're more professional athletes now, as opposed to. You know what I mean? Like, I think people are taking them more seriously now, and they're probably taking their health and well-being a lot more serious now. And, do you think that this generation has learnt from the past generation's mistakes?
Well, I mean, what are they looking for when they do the wellness check? You know what I'm saying? They're looking for steroids, marijuana. I don't know how far their testing goes unless you're showing some signs of problems. You know what I mean? Showing up to the building late, looking like you like fucking ran through 48 hours of no sleep. Again, I don't know the wellness policy. I don't know what they look for when they first call you in. But they got the money, so I guess they'll test you for anything. It's just that, like I said, if you're on gimmicks and and you keep it I'm stuttering moderately, then they won't know. But if you're like abusing it and you're just sleeping in a corner or you're just drugged out, then yeah.
You're pulling a Matt Hardy falling asleep in your food and catering.
Yeah, or the pay-per-view with Sting. Yeah.
God.
And those are obviously early signs as well for people that are abusing and kind of leading down to the path, which could end to their death.
But think about it like this. I know this era and that era is different, but like the Matt Hardy thing, they knew, dude, you couldn't have to be an expert to see like this motherfucker's on some gimmicks, but they still push that motherfucker out to do the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and Big Show, Paul White actually,
White.
He I'm trying to remember exactly what he said because I want to get this right. He told Matt Hardy after that incident happened, when he fell asleep in his food and catering, he's literally just nodding off during a conversation, and he went and asked Big Show for help to kind of like cover it up, and Big Show told him, he's like, you basically just murdered somebody in the middle of the street in broad daylight. I really can't help you. I can be here for you if you want to talk. I can take you and help you get rehab. But as far as like covering this up, I can't do anything for you. You pretty much just murdered somebody in broad daylight, and everybody here saw it. There's nothing I could do. And you bring up a really good point about, we hear all the time about these health and wellness policies and they're testing every week or they're testing every other week, but what are they really testing for? That's I think that's the key in all of this. And clearly we're starting to see now more than ever the guys in the shot caller positions used to be in the locker room. They used to be one of the boys, Triple H, Michael Hayes, Shawn Michaels. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Even when you go over to AEW, you got Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Christopher Daniels. Anywhere you look, Ring of Honor, you got Marty Scurll. Anywhere you look, somebody in an authoritative position has been in the locker room. They know what drugs are being used. They know the big ones like the somas and the oxys and stuff like that. And I'm a firm believer in the saying, those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. You have, especially being one of the boys and being from the locker room, and you know what's being passed around. I could see if it was somebody off the street, never knew anything about wrestling, just got plucked out and thrown into it. Like no heat against him, but take Vince Russo for example. Vince Russo went from working a video store and got plucked into a authoritative position, a writer position in a wrestling company. Now, I'm not saying that these two things are compatible. What I'm saying is when you have somebody like that who doesn't know, who was never privy to the locker room area, he kind of has an excuse of like, okay, I didn't know that's what they took. I just thought it was the cocaine, the marijuana, and stuff like that. But when you have somebody who lived the locker room life, they know what drugs are being used, they know what needs to be tested for, and I'll be the one to say it. I don't think they're testing for it.
Yeah.
I don't think they care. If they did, we would see. As much as I hate to see anybody lose their job, as much as I hate to see anybody lose their push or anything like that, if they tested for what was actually being used, I think we'd see a lot more suspensions and terminations.
Yeah, I think the only time they do those testing is when they have to do the testing, when they've been called out and somebody is aware of it. Like, hey, let's say, for example, I'm just using Drew
Like when
McIntyre.
somebody passes and it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like Drew McIntyre. I'm not saying he's on gimmicks. I'm not saying he's on steroids or anything, but the guy looks phenomenal. And I'm like, man, he looks like he's on the gas. Now, I don't think he's being tested for that. But let's say somebody from the outside who's, regulating the drug policy comes in and goes, I want him tested. Then Vince pulls the trigger and tests him. I'm not saying that's what's happening. It's just from the outside in, I see that and stuff. And first of all, I would never ask the Big Show for help. That dumb fuck. I'm keeping it real because when we're in Puerto Rico,
here we go. Let's go. Let's hear it.
When we're in Puerto Rico, we again that store that sold the steroids behind the counter. Yeah, that dumb fuck was the one standing next to me. Said, "Hey, can I get a case of growth hormones?" And I said, "Show, don't you have a gland problem in the?" Because that's why you're so big, I'll be fine. So yeah, buddy, I will never take your advice or any help if you're taking growth hormones, knowing that you have this gland in your brain that's producing too much growth hormones because he thought he was going to get shredded. And fuck him, the big slow. That's okay. Fuck.
But getting back on topic, guys.
Back on top.
Back in. Hey, settle down, Angel.
I love this show.
Settle the fuck down. Settle the fuck down.
Why don't you just put a disclaimer? Angel, what's that disclaimer? We don't condone. Whatever they'd say. Like it's on him, not on us. Whatever they say.
Angel is an independent contractor, and he does not speak for the betterment of the group or this page.
There you go. You're safe, Pierce. That's why you changed it. You're like, well, let's change the subject.
No, but I just wanted to more just obviously talk, drugs that have led to the deaths of these professional wrestlers. And you look at suicides, you look at the accidental overdoses and the actual overdoses. And, you're not seeing as many of them within the last 10 to 15 years. I think those major promotions that they have changed. Like I said, I don't know what they're testing for, but look at the death rate, like it's dropped. Prior to the early 2000s, we were seeing a lot more of it.
Yeah, I think the deaths related to drugs that we see now are from long-term use. Like I said, take Eddie Guerrero for example. He was sober when he died, but from that long-term use of using drugs and, as Angel likes to say, doing the gimmick, it catches up to him. But I think what we see more commonly now than we did back then is intentional suicide, like with hangings and
Yeah.
stuff like that. We all know the big one in the room, the elephant in the room, but Ashley Massaro, she also hung herself.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing. Like
She was
pro re-
she was 10 days before her 40th birthday when she done it.
It's crazy.
it's heartbreaking. It really is. You know, and you look at some like Ashley Massaro. You know, just before her 40th birthday. You know, and what led to that? You know, we don't know. And you know, you look at other wrestlers that have died around the same age due to
Well,
suicide.
I don't want to give away the farm on this, and I know Piers, I'm not trying to cut you off. I don't want to give away the farm or nothing because we do plan on doing an episode on it. But
Yeah.
she was, and I, like I said, I do not condone suicide, not even a little bit. I've seen it way too much in the military, law enforcement. Angel, as you know, it's two of the highest suicide rated jobs. Period. I do not condone it. I don't advocate for it. So I just want to make that very clear.
I
So
agree too.
I'm not making excuses. If somebody, this is just my personal, you know what, my opinion doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does because I'm on this show. I don't I don't feel sorry for suicide. I never will. Love me or hate me. I am terribly sorry for the family because now they have to mourn that loss. But for the individual who does it, I feel no pity. Let me just go and say that right now. With that being said, I'm not trying to justify this. That's the only reason I bring that up is because I don't want people to think I'm justifying suicide. Um, but Ashley Massaro had come out and she had made allegations that she had been raped several times in WWE, that she had been taken advantage of in WWE, not just by wrestlers, but by WWE management. This is a whole nother show that we're planning, so I don't want to
Yeah.
give away the farm on it, but she was going through severe depression and anxiety and you know everything that everybody deals with, but on top of it, I mean, when you have to, when you are literally, I've had to interview rape victims. I've talked to victims of sexual assault, and that's a scar that never goes away. Never.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree.
And you know, as far as suicide goes, you know, like for people to take that final step to say that there's no other way to go, and you know, like I said, to me, you know, suicide prevention is the most important thing in the world, and like I said, it's, you know, we're definitely not here condoning suicide in any way, and you know, but you look at professional wrestling and the ones that have taken their lives, and you know, for me, there's so many questions. Is it because they come off the road? They're used to having, you know, these being told where to be, when to be there, you know, when to work out, when to eat. And now that they're dying of a broken heart because they feel like they're not part of the business anymore that, you know, they once loved and were a part of for many years.
It's a transition. It's hard when you're up here and then you're down here. Perfect example, when I was a cop, I was recognized, and you know, I was a cop, dude. I was making good money, and they go, "What happened?" Like even being a cop at that status, you can never reach this, and they always look at you. And again, there's nothing wrong. It just hit me weird, like, you know, like, hey, what? You're not wrestling anymore? What happened? Like, I'm not homeless, buddy. I'm not in the streets. But anyway, but regardless, it's just a transition. You're in the limelight. You could do whatever you want. You're making the money. You're on the road. You have all the fans, and then you don't have it anymore, and you're back to reality. It's hard to change. You know, it's hard to have somebody. It's hard for me to have somebody yell at me at work or tell me what to do, especially when you had many years of freedom as an independent contractor. Yeah, Vince tells you what to do, but still, you're still free. You're still your own boss. So again, that's just a little bit of it, but it is hard.
Yeah, I saw the same thing when I was leaving the military, and you know, this is not something that I've been vocal about or anything like that. But here it is. I mean, if I'm going to come on this show and I'm going to call people out on their if I'm going to call people out on their shit, I need to own my shit, right?
Absolutely.
So when I was getting out of the military, there's a man named his name's Justin McCormick. He's going to stand by my side at my wedding. It's one of my best friends. When I was getting out of the military, like you said, you know, I was here and now I'm getting out. I was one of the boys. Granted, this is a different job than pro wrestling, but it's along the same lines in a sense that I was a part of a higher group. I was a part of an elite group, and then I'm getting out of it. And it was a huge culture shock. I went from being told where to be, when to be, how to eat, what to eat, when to work out, when to train, all this other stuff. And now, dude, I never wanted to get out. This wasn't my decision to get out. Here I am.
Yeah.
When it was a huge shock. And I never wanted to hurt myself. I never wanted to end my life. But I was getting very, very, very depressed. I was getting very depressed for a very long period of time. And it took one of my best friends, Justin. He kind of saw the writing on the wall. I'm not saying it wasn't going that direction, but I'm not saying it was either. But he kind of saw the writing on the wall. He contacted my boss, and they escorted me to counseling to get help. And here I am today with, 4 kids and a beautiful wife later. I mean, life is good. But like I said, I understand going through that major change. But and the only reason I bring this story up is I am living proof. Even when you go through this change, there is help out there. There's avenues to go through. There are different tools that we can use that are at our disposal. We just have to be willing to ask for that help. Now, me personally, I was not willing to ask for that help because I'm a big tough guy. I don't need anybody's help. I'm not a victim. But my friend seen it and took it upon himself to get me that help, and I'm grateful every day he did. We have to be willing to ask for help.
Absolutely. No. And also, not to interrupt, Angel, but not make a permanent decision on a temporary problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, hey, Kevin, thank you for serving our country. I don't know how you can do it in the field that you did, and cooking for all those servicemen and making eggs and waffles and shit. That's stressful. I will kill myself if I had to do that shit.
I was a dog handler, you jerk.
Oh, more eggs.
And that's why we love Angel. We get done talking about a very touchy subject, and he just breaks up the monotony. Not very many people can do that.
We got to keep the jokes going, bro. But like I said, but you're right, man. Like I said, I knew some guys who were cops, and again, I'm going off track a little bit, but it still touches home where individuals like, gosh, man. I mean, I knew a buddy who stuck his gun to his chin in his patrol car, and a citizen saw him. And they reported it because your vehicle has a number, and they reported it from that. And they just gave him counseling and stuff. But I was surprised they still let him carry a gun after the fact, especially when you're sitting in your driver's seat, with the 9mm, with a Glock to your head. And another guy who joked around, laughed all the time. He was the most funny. His name was Steve Martin. That was even the comedian. And then last time I saw him, he was living rent-free at an apartment complex for security, because sometimes you can get a job doing that, get rent-free. Found himself hanging. No, he shot himself. He shot himself, man, because he was depressed. Don't know the reason, don't know why, but yeah, law enforcement is tough, man. It's almost the same thing. It's part of a circle,
Yeah. And, looking at another one, when I was looking at some of the wrestlers that have passed too soon, one of the names that came past from your history, Angel, which was Big Dick Dudley. He was 34 years of age, died of kidney failure, and he was someone who trained with Johnny Rods, just like yourself. With Big Dick Dudley, was he someone who was abusing the gimmicks, was abusing alcohol? Was that something that contributed to his death, or was it just genetic?
First of all, I can't even speak. I mean, I know Alex. He's known as Alex the Great from Gleason's. But I didn't know him. I knew him, but I didn't know him. I didn't really associate myself with him. I mean, I was in the beginning stages of ECW when the Dudleys were going to leave, kind of, sort of. But I mean, I don't even know the stories. I just heard he died of kidney failure. Nice guy. I mean, like I said, I always get along with everybody, but I just don't know his dark side or what he did gimmick wise, because I never sat at that table. Like I said, the people that I sat at the table, I seen it personally, and I know what to, like, oh shit. But I never
Yeah.
sat at the table with Big Dick.
Alex.
Even though I was close with Devon, I sat with him, but I never really sat with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Remember, there was always cliques.
Oh, absolutely, and there always is in wrestling. There always are the cliques and the groups that sort of associate. But looking through some of these guys that have passed, and I just wanted to mention a few names. And one of the ones which was probably been the most recent in the past few years, which was Reid Flair at 25 years of age of a drug overdose. And Reid. He was making a name for himself on the independent circuit. He was really giving himself an opportunity to, really propel himself forward. But, obviously demons took over and he ended up ODing, and dying at the age of 25. So, Kevin, do you want to jump in?
Reid Flair's a tough one. Not because there's any emotional connection, but, and I'm not trying to justify anything. I just all these points that we make, guys, for everybody watching, we are not justifying overdose. We're not justifying suicide. We're just giving our opinions. That's all this is. So, with that being said, I think Reid Flair is one of the ones he's Ric Flair's son. There's a level of expectation of this kid, whether they came out and said it or not. Look at Charlotte right now. Granted, she's able to run with it a lot better, clearly. But when you are the son of arguably the greatest of all time, you walk through the doors of a performance center or a wrestling academy or whatever the case may be with a certain level of expectation. And as children, one of the things we always want to do, we want to make our parents proud.
Yeah.
It is bred in your system since day one. You want to make your parents proud. Reid Flair was no Ric Flair. Let's just go and put that out there right now. But trying to deal with that and trying to live with what he thought was, I'm never going to be as good as my dad. I'm never going to live up to this name. I'm never going to be able to be what people want me to be. To have that expectation on top of him, plus everything that pro wrestling entails, I'm very sorry that it happened, but unless you are just absolutely strong-minded, strong-willed, and not going to budge, you put all those ingredients in a bowl and it's a ticking time bomb, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, that's a hard mantle to follow. I mean, there's a lot of athletes, that are unable to match up to what their dad accomplished or their mother accomplished. I mean, it's just hard. Some people can, and I think he just couldn't. He couldn't get past that shadow. I mean, look at and I'm not saying he committed suicide, but look at Kurt Hennig's son, Axel Henning. Yeah, he's a great talent, but it's a mantle, man. It's a hurdle that you have to climb over, and sometimes you can't do it. Orton can do it.
Case in point, Brian Christopher, Jerry the King Lawler's son. It's.
Yeah, but that was a weird thing because I feel bad for Jerry Lawler because he left him in jail just to prove a point because he kept the story is that he was just like, I'm tired of bailing him out. He needs to learn his lesson. I'm leaving it in there. I'm not going to help him. And then he committed suicide because I'm assuming his dad, he felt like his dad abandoned him or something. So he made a decision. He stuck to it. But then the consequences was his son committed suicide. Would he committed suicide if he would have bailed him out too? Just like Tootsie Roll commercial, the world will never know.
It wasn't confirmed it was a suicide, though, was it? I thought they were suspicious of it.
I think he hung himself in the cell. But let's look at the Carfax and find out. Unless Kevin is already looking at it.
Trying to find it. I no luck though.
Well, I mean, we could look at it as we're talking, and I could find it as well, see what I could find. But yeah, I mean, it's hard, man. I mean, it's really hard to live, like I said, past your dad or your mom. You know, if your mom is or dad or the elite, and that's in corporate world too. If your dad's the CEO and you're the drizzling shits, and you don't have no brain cells, and you have to, you know, this is my son Austin, you know, and he's going to be the president of this company.
I just think there's an added. I mean, much like you're saying, I just believe there's an added pressure to being a Ric Flair's son, Bret Hart's son, even Mr. Perfect's son, you know, Sting's son. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And there's an added pressure to it. And Angel, you know just as well as anybody, pro wrestling is hard enough as it is. And when you add those added pressures, you add all these stressors, you add all these triggers, and then you put into the fact that prescription drugs and, you know, opiates and alcohol and all this other stuff is literally at your fingertips. Is there any wonder why there's not more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so didn't mean to cut you off, but here's the story. I mean, Jerry Lawler has this lawsuit, wrongful death lawsuit in Memphis. This was in the Sports Illustrated in July 29th of 2019. And he was found hanging in an isolated cell at the Hardeman County Jail. And Lawler questioned if the death was a suicide. So that's it. There you go. So,
but a secluded cell would mean that he was by himself. So,
yeah, like an isolated cell. I mean, but there's always ways. I mean,
I'd see what he's getting at. Not so much another inmate, but maybe an officer that done it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard, but I mean, unless it's a small town. I don't know the area, but you know, like if he was a known trouble, you know what I mean? Like the movies where the guy's like, "You're so and so son, you're always giving us trouble and headaches," and you know, and stuff. I don't know. It's just that's a hard thing. It's almost like the Jeremy Epstein thing. Like they said that they killed him, basically. You know.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things, man. It's pro wrestling has definitely seen its fair share of losses over the years, but leading us into sort of wrapping this episode up, guys. What's been some of the most ones to you, Angel, that have been the ones that you've been the most closest to, that you've seen some people that you were close to who may have passed from the business, and were there any signs that you've seen that you could have or anyone could have interjected, or was it pretty much well hidden?
Well, nah, I just say like Mike Awesome. I mean, I like Mike. I was talking to DeVito about it, and DeVito didn't like him. He said he was a dick, but he was never a dick to me. I don't know. But when I found out he was WCW, he was doing good. I mean, I didn't see any problems. And then the story was he hung himself because he had some child custody issues that he was not able to see his kids. And that's what led to his death. Again, everything I tell you is what the boys tell me. I don't go off what the newspaper or stuff, because I mean, yeah, they might find the truth, but sometimes it's just vague. Great guy. I mein, it hit home. Balls, dying. I mean, but he died watching Jeopardy. I'll take that for 1,000. But Axel died in his car, overdose, and I think it was in a McDonald's parking lot, and again, those are great guys. I mean, I've seen things that they've done, and I mean, like Balls, perfect example. When DeVito's dad died of cancer, I can't remember exactly where, in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I think Balls asked him. I think DeVito was mentioning that he had his dad's liquid morphine, and then Balls like, "Hey, brother, can you bring that?" His eyes, like Puss in Boots when he was like with those big eyes, ooh, just so like enthralled about it. But anyway, he brought it to the show. He goes, "Here, man, take it." And that dude took it like he was doing a flask of whiskey. Took 2 swigs, and then he was like puking everywhere. And he's like, "Man, that's some good shit, man. That's some good shit." I'm like, "Dude, you're fucking throwing up everywhere," But I mean, again, I love Balls. I mean, I know him from day one, and it bothers me when it hits home to people that I knew close to me, and you know, and like I said, me and DeVito joke when we hear it, and we go, "You're next, bitch. You're next. Can I have your car?" You know, but we're just trying to lighten the mood and stuff. And I mean, I hope it's DeVito first, but that's here or there. You know, better him than me, I say.
What a great fucking friend.
No, I love DeVito, but he'll say the same thing. Better that nigga will drop dead before I do. White is right. But that's our banner. But again, a lot of friends, we try to, like, it's just like being a cop, man. You have to have that sick humor, man, because if I let it seep into me, I'm the one eating my gun. I've seen babies' heads rolled over by cars and their brains all over the street, 2-year-olds, you know, and I was like, holy, and then I go home and hug my kid. I mean, she was a baby at the time, but it was hard, you know. I mean, when you go home and hug your kid and you're afraid to lose them, you know, picture that every day, seeing it every day, man. Man, I ain't gonna eat my gun, so I crack jokes and make it off-color jokes, and that's, if people think I'm insensitive, I'm sorry.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten snickered at or you know, called out. Oh, you think this is funny? Not necessarily, but you have to realize when you are surrounded by death every single day, you've got to find something to keep your sanity. When you see crimes against children every day and you have to maintain a certain level of awareness and you can't let your emotions show, I mean, that stuff will eat the insides of you worse than any drug will.
Yeah.
That constant reminder of how sick and twisted this world can be. And I get it all the time. So Angel, you're preaching to the friggin' choir, man. There are very, we find the humor in the weirdest situations.
I guess, you know, I'm laughing because I know it's insensitive, but I got to tell Kevin this story. It was on Thanksgiving. And
I got a Thanksgiving story too.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving, and this kid hung himself because he was doing autoerotica. And autoerotica is you choke yourself to a point where you orgasm, but it's like a euphoric feeling. So when he was about to climax, he had the knife next to him, and he was using the bunk bed, and he was trying to cut the rope, you know, with the knife, but it was too late. He died jerking off, and then me and my partner literally downstairs as Thanksgiving, you know, they were preparing for Thanksgiving. Of course, they stopped when this happened. We go, I guess they're not going to have any gravy for their turkey. But again, man, it was a moment where we had to release the jokes because it was serious. It was sad, but it was like, guess they're not going to have any gravy for their turkey this year.
See, there was one, this was a couple years ago on Thanksgiving. There was a kid from my hometown. He was going through a divorce. One second.
I got another one.
All right, okay, here we go. I'm telling Front Street, guys. My wife Ashley, her ex-husband. Let's talk about it. So when me and Ashley first got together, she was going through a divorce. Papers were filed, everything. The guy refused to sign. So me and Ashley are laying down together, and he's just calling and calling and calling and calling. She was to go over there for Thanksgiving for the kids. That was it, for the kids, nothing else. She gets over there, and I'm obviously summarizing this up because we don't have much time left.
Yeah.
But things got violent. He took her phone and threw it in the middle of the field so she couldn't call for help. He tried to keep her there. She got away. She came back to my house. And like I said, there's a lot more details of this story I can tell you guys later. But anyway, so he calls her and tries to get her to go over there. She doesn't do it. That day, he climbs up into a tree stand, blows his head off with a shotgun, Ashley's gun. And blows his head off. And then, as an officer, clearly I get this information. And the very first thing I said to the responding detective, it's like, hey, man, can I have the gun since he's not using it anymore?
I thought they destroy that shit.
But that is Ashley's ex-husband.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
the sperm donor to one of my kids.
I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, is another thing. Oh man, I love telling cop stories. One more. I was on a call. Now, this is a professional businessman, you know, a mogul. We show up on the scene, and what happened was he liked to dress in drag and do the autoerotica too, and he hung himself. What killed him is that he was wearing high heels, and the old houses used to have these floor grates for heat. So his dumbass fucking had his feet on the grate and his high heels got stuck. So when he's trying to so he hung himself because he accidentally got his high heels stuck. And I'm laughing because we were me and my partner, and it's sad because his kids found him. That's the sad part because he's in a wig and he's in a negligee, you know,
That's
lipstick.
not how they want to remember their dad.
Yeah. And then when me and my partner, and again, it's always me and my partner, we both look at each other and we go, "You dumb fuck." You know, and we're just laughing like this motherfucker, you know, because I know it's you got to visually see you trying to get your heels. I know you do that, Pierce. You know, you got heel, huh?
You said he got it stuck in the heater.
Yeah, the old houses used to have the floor grates.
It's safe to say it got hot and heavy pretty quick, huh?
There you go. You know, so Pierce, if you ever do something like that, don't stand on top of a grate with your heels.
Thanks for the heads up.
With that being said, Piers, how about you send us home, man?
Let's wrap this up. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Wrestling with Tragedy, episode 7, Gone Too Soon. And I hope you've enjoyed it. This show is brought to you by Angel Medina, the Kingpin himself, Kevin Rodriguez, and Piers Austin. Thank you for watching. And also our sponsors, A-Rock Designs on Facebook. They make all the beautiful cups, tumblers, t-shirts, keychains, hoodies, you name it. She makes it, and she makes everything with a beautiful wrestling, designs around it. Even if you want non-wrestling stuff as well, she's doing some amazing things as well. I can't wait for my 3 cups to come in. But Mayan Belts, they are the best belt makers in the universe. They make the best custom championship belts and replica championship belts. If you want to go check them out, go check them out on Facebook at Mayan Belts and contact Eddie and Ira Williams. On that note, gentlemen, I am Piers Austin. This is Kevin Rodriguez. That's Angel Medina.
For more wrestling content, please feel free to always check out Wrestling Review Society and Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance for your daily fix of professional wrestling.
And if you didn't understand what Piers Austin said, just slow your video down by 2 notches, and you'll be able to understand what he said.
Oh, Angel. Anyway, guys, thanks very much, Angel. Fuck you, but we'll catch you next week. See you guys.